What's on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering. I hope you're doing well today. There's something very interesting going on with the text message exchange that the FBI released yesterday that was from the man who is currently in jail right now for taking the life of Charlie Kirk and his trans boyfriend. And there are a lot of questions. I get the question everything crowd, and I understand where they're coming from. There may be a little bit more here than just questioning everything, because there's a lot. And there's also some uncomfortable truths that people are talking about. Some cameras that TPUSA had set up at the event that could probably release footage that would put together a lot, or that would put to rest a lot of the conspiracy theories, or prove them right. There's about 6 dozen of them currently. 2 or 3 are pretty. 2 or 3 of them are pretty plausible, I guess. They're gaining steam. But let's talk about this in today's first video. There's been a call for Turning Point USA to release the camera footage. I don't know if they're worried about conspiracy theories. They could do that. I'm not going to call for it. I don't need to see it happen again. However, apparently the Turning Point staff have the footage of Charlie, of everything that happened. Obviously they would. They're filming everything. They took the cameras down while contaminating the crime scene. So they have cameras.
I just heard them say the active shooter, Charlie Kirk, has been.
See, they have a camera right there that would show, that would dispel a lot of the, where did the bullet come from, all this kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously some people are like, what were they hiding? I don't think they were hiding anything. I think they're just like, well, let's get out of here. I don't know what else to do. But again, if they release that, then the whole world will have to relive that again. There's a lot of calls for it. I don't know. I don't know if I would. I don't know if I don't need to see it. I don't need to see it to be convinced of what happened. But if there's enough of his supporters and people who actually are asking in good faith, maybe you could release it, but cut out the incident or blur it or something like that to prove that, no, it wasn't somebody in the crowd, or no, it wasn't from a window. This kind of stuff. Because I would expect that footage would probably show the guy that did it, or it would show, it would dispel a lot of these rumors. But the text message thing is something that I think does stink a little bit. But I have a different theory about it than I think a lot of the other people. Quote, I will have left no evidence except for the note I wrote to you confessing my crime, and all these text messages laying out in meticulous detail all of the pertinent information needed to convict me. Lamau, okay. So these text messages come out. There's lots of questions. Why isn't there timestamps? Christmas comes early kind of thing. In one short conversation, establishes location, confirms rifle, exonerates George Zinn, which we've got a different video about later today, establishes motive, confirms the drop point of a rifle, establishes planning timeline, pawns rifle on grandpa, no handoffs, references bushes for rifle and changing outfits, and admits to etching bullets. Golly, the FBI is lucky when they write their own script, a lot of people are saying. 12 exchanges, 9 clues. Now that's what I call a Christmas miracle in Valhalla. I mean, I can definitely see why people say this is really weird. They also say, hey, this isn't how Gen Z talks. Gen Z doesn't talk like this. I put the fact that it was just so perfect. That's more suspicious to me. But the whole Gen Z doesn't talk this way thing, that's nonsense. There's a lot of people who are Gen Z that don't talk the cartoonish way that you hear, that people think. My brother-in-law is Gen Z, and he's never said no cap. I've never heard him say for real, for real. I've never heard him say any of the crap that Gen Z says. I've never heard him say skibbity toilet or whatever. So this idea that like, guys, Gen Z doesn't talk this way. The cartoon version of Gen Z, maybe. But I don't think that that's enough to say, that's really weird. Like that I don't think that's enough. Now, I will say this. They'll say a 22-year-old terminally online Zoomer using phrases like squad car drop point, swept the area, my vehicle, till I died of old age, my old man. Again, I called my dad my old man. I'm not Gen Z, but, drop point, swept the area. These are terms that you would use pretty normally if you're playing like Call of Duty. Or you had, I believe there's some ROTC connections for this kid or his boyfriend. Squad car, I don't know why that's not particularly Gen Z. Again, drop point, swept the area, my vehicle. The my vehicle thing is odd. You would probably say my car. Here's what I believe is in these text messages. Now, stick with me. You're going to need some coffee. By the way, I have a massive sale today. CBCAmazon.com will take you directly to our Amazon store. And I've got our cherry cordial on sale for $5, our tangerine for $5. Everything has free overnight shipping, and our summer flavors are in stock and shipping free overnight. The Tiger's Blood and Blackberry Cream are ridiculous. You got to pick some up. Now, here's what I think the text messages are. I do think they are real, but fake. I think that these text messages were concocted by both Tyler and his trans boyfriend to establish that his roommate would be not associated with this. I believe the roommate was involved in planning it. I believe we will find this out in the coming days and weeks. I believe that the roommate was every bit involved in this as the actual guy that pulled the trigger. It says, this is not how Gen Z writes text messages. Notice everything you need to prosecute is right there for you, all laid out. How convenient. The writing has the surface markers of someone aged 18 to 26. Slang ooh, I don't know. But the style and inconsistencies suggest it could be an older writer imitating that demographic. There's no evidence of that. This is a reach. This is an example of saying, we're looking at the edges for even though everything's right there in front of us. I think what perhaps they did is they might have used something like ChatGPT or AI to generate this text conversation that they sent back and forth. Now, to help prove that, search history, devices, all that kind of stuff will be needed to, forensically gone through. But also, the timestamps would be important. Like, when were these text messages sent? Were they sent, do they line up with the timeline of events? Was he sending these text messages after the shooting? Were they before? Was there a squad car there at the time that this text message was sent saying there was a squad car there? At the time this text message was sent, my dad's calling me right now. Was his dad calling him at that time? This should be easy for Kash Patel to debunk. I part of what I'm doing on this channel is engaging in some of these theories that I think kind of distract people from the truth, and that is we should be looking at far left radicals, not Israel and not this and not that. But it's worth talking about them, especially if they have such, large followings. The thing after reading this note, the roommate replied, "What?" A bunch of exclamation points. "You're joking, right?" Now, I'm still okay, my love. Yes, normal people don't talk like that, but this wasn't a normal person. But I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. I don't know what Orem means. Is that the city? Shouldn't be long till I can come home. He never went home. But I got to grab my rifle. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I'm sorry to involve you. Again, there is some... I want to analyze that text. There is evidence that he thought he was going to get away with this. Because what do most people do who do this what's the last act they do, right? They take themselves out. That has happened in just about every scenario. So why did he run? Why did he stash and bring a change? He thought he was going to get away with it. That's what I think. You weren't the one that did it, right? I'm so sorry. I thought they caught the person. No, they grabbed some crazy old dude that then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from the drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out. But there's still one vehicle lingering. Again, I don't know how he had eyes on the scene, but you should be able to connect. You should be able to show us a timestamp of this text and then, evidence that the vehicle was there. I'm sure these vehicles all have GPS location. Again, Kash needs to just debunk this. Now, I'm not saying the FBI has to rush out to debunk every conspiracy theory, but these text messages they paint way too clean of a picture. Now, again, Occam's razor is a thing, and it's possible that this dude was just that dumb. But if he really thought he was going to get away with it, why did he send these text messages? Certainly he would have known. Certainly he would have known they'd be found. Certainly he thought, I guess maybe he thought nobody would ever connect it to him, so nobody would ever see his text messages. A lot of this is the actions of somebody that thought they were going to get away with it. That's what I believe. But I also believe it's entirely possible that these text messages were sent and they seem so off because they were planned ahead of time and sent back and forth to try and make sure the roommate wasn't implicated. That's what I think that's more plausible than the FBI just faking them. Like, he knew he was going to go to jail. He knew he was going to get caught. This way, he can throw the FBI off the scent of his boyfriend. Sorry. The stuff about my dad's calling right now. Okay. Well, you should be able to prove that. If you can prove that, if you can say the text was sent at, 3:34 or 4:45 in the afternoon, and his dad did place a call to him at that exact same time, now you know the texts are real. And you know they're just dumb. As far as releasing that other camera angle, I think the roommate framed Robinson. I've run through Grok, ChatGPT. They both think there's a high likelihood that both users are the same person. That's why he's, quote, cooperating and feeding the FBI everything they need to throw the book at Robinson. That's also possible. It's very possible. It's very, very good. I don't know that drop point means anything or swept the area. I don't think he could have, again, there's an ROTC connection that was made, I think, with his boyfriend. But there is something off about these text messages that we need more answers. I don't need to see any more angles of Charlie Kirk losing his life. But that footage, I imagine, has been subpoenaed by the FBI. So I would suspect that we would see that come out. I don't know. Let me know what you think. You think that TPUSA should release the footage from the scene that wasn't being live streamed? Or do you think they should just not answer it? I'm on the fence. I don't need to see it. I know what happened. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below.